Chapter 13. He wakes in the night, stirring to the sounds of trees. He is light, the fever is gone. He raises his arm. There is pain, but the swelling is gone also. He eyes the wound, a scabbing mouth in the dark. He turns onto his side and finds not a mound, but an open hole beside him, the gravestone cast aside. He exclaims, and then exhaustion claims him. He wakes again with pain in his cheek, his face pressed to the stone. There is a rustling breeze in the trees, and before him dank and turned earth. He can smell it. He struggles to his knees. The waning moon shines through the canopy, revealing an excavation. He leans forward to put his hand into the cold of the hole. His fingers explore that dark, feeling nothing but collapsed earth. The little box is gone. He places his flat palm on the earth at the bottom for a time, breathing, and then he begins to dig. It does not take him long. Soon his fingers are touching wood. He cannot help himself. He widens the hole, scooping the earth aside with his giant hands, making it large enough for his head and torso. He crawls down into the soil and places his cheek against the wood. "My love," he whispers, but the wood does not speak, and the bones within are silent. He does not mind. He has long since made peace with the silence. He enlarges the hole, scraping the dirt away, finding the extent of the coffin within the ground. He glories in it, the soil upon his skin, the worms and the insects beneath the waning moon, and her in her box with him. Within the ground is seepage from the lake. The moisture coats him as he lies with his love in the earth. And then a voice croaks. The moisture moves about him, and suddenly he does not know if he lies upon the coffin among the worms and the beetles, or if he has been spirited to another place. For it is black about him, covering him. Water or soil, it makes no difference. He has been taken from the world. It is her. He knows it. She has taken him. The soil is her soil. The water is her water. It is from here that the creatures of this valley know her, that she speaks with them. But the grave is not hers. He knows that also. The bones are not hers, and he holds onto that knowledge with all his might. Something passes his legs. She is inside him. He closes his eyes and sees with her sight. In her arms she clutches the box. She opens it. Inside there are the items of a young girl, a red comb made from horsehair and wood, the paint faded, a blanket tucked in, frayed by the ears, and the carved figure of a fish. Where is she? There is no body in here. Her body was lost. These were her treasured things. Her fingers enter the box and whisper through the folds of the blanket. They take up the carved fish. She fixes him with her green eyes. Where was her body lost? Her face is impassive, her mouth unmoving, but her voice sounds in his mind. She was drowned at sea. I searched for her for many days. He does not look away from her furious eyes, even though they cripple him. Her fingers stroke the scales of the carved fish. She is the source of your guilt. Yes. You killed her. No, but it was by your fault that she died. Yes. Why? He feels her moving inside him, searching for his secrets, turning his heart upside down. He clings to the coffin, knowing that in this kingdom of soil and water all is hers, but for this wood, these bones, this love. If he can hold it in his mind, remember it, he will not be obliterated. But she is relentless. She is peeling him apart. Her face begins to change, becoming a mask of hatred. Shivers cascade up his spine, for her face is an image from his own past. She looked at you like this, whispers the creature, a sound so slight it is all he can hear. She hated you. Why? Uncle Mike can hardly draw breath, so awesome is her fury leering down at him. She loved a man who I would not allow. Why? I did not think him worthy. She covers the sky above him, her 8 limbs at work throughout his flesh, testing the truth of his words. There was an accident on the sea. Her husband fell from their boat. He was snared in his own lines. He sank, and she dived to follow him. She dived to escape you, The words of the creature echo with eternity. He cannot deny them. Yes. Did your wife have hatred for you? No, there was nothing between us but love. But your daughter had hatred for you. Why? He does not speak. Say it. Tell me why. Because I would not set her free. There is silence, as the endless worlds hear his admission. Yes, that is why. The creature relents, the pressure about him subsides, and his fingers cease their clawing on the wood. The stars return to the heavens, and he finds himself returned to the earth. You would not set her free, and now she is gone from you, forever. The bear nods, and then he turns his face to the crook of his arm and weeps, shielding his tears from the world. The sun is rising when he comes from the forest. The campsite seems empty, but soon he spies a foot emerging from the lip of the first tank. She is inside. He goes to collect his rifle and quickly shoots a rabbit on the cliff above. He returns to his camping place where he begins to light a fire. What was she like? He pauses at the feeling of her words. It is marvelous to him. Like a memory, they fade when he attempts to pinpoint them, but they are clear now. He sets about skinning the rabbit. She was like her mother, proud and strong, and like her father, defiant. Am I like her? He skewers the animal and places it above the flames. Yes, you are like her. You are beautiful and alone, like her. Am I her? No. When you first saw me, you thought I was her. You came from the sea. I wished God had brought her back to me, but you are not her. Who am I? I do not know. Only God knows. He hears a stirring in the tank and turns as she emerges. She has grown taller. She is now as tall as he. She liked to sit on my shoulders. I would walk in the surf with her, on the beach, with the spray splashing us both. She loved the sea, like her mother. She is picking her way across the rock towards him. Her steps are surer now, her legs strong. You do not love the sea? No, I was born in these mountains, but far from here. I loved them, and they the sea. Now the sea is my reminder of them. They were from the Bay? He shakes his head. All of us were outsiders to the Bay. I come from these mountains, and my wife from another place beside the sea, far to the north. There was a war when we were young. We both were thrown from our homes. We found each other in these mountains. She drops her head, listening to the histories in his words. My wife and I spent many months at this lake when we were young, hiding from the war. This is where we found our life together, where our daughter was conceived. Your wife loved to be beneath the trees. Yes, and she loved this lake. She was like you. She swam like a fish. He stares into the flames. That is why I brought my daughter here, to be with her mother, so that she may finally rest in the peace of the trees. She did not have peace. No, she was violent. Only her mother brought her peace. But her mother died when she was very young. If the trees and the lake were her place, what is yours? He gestures up the cliff and beyond it, to the slopes of the mountain rising above them. I like the open spaces and the cool wind. I like to see far. He reaches forward to slice some of the meat off of the rabbit. Will you eat? He asks her. She shakes her head, but watches as he does. There is something in him that reminds her of Jonathan. While this man is bullish, both are careful. He slices the meat carefully, not wanting to waste it, and he chews it thoughtfully. Why do you hate Jonathan? I don't hate him. I just wish... He shakes his head. He is asleep, a dreamer. This world does not have sympathy for dreamers. I want him to wake up." "Why did he wound you?" He looks up and sees the pain in her eyes. "I saved him from drowning. He cut me and ran. I am not surprised. That is what I expect of him." The fire crackles as the flames eat the remaining wood. He feeds them another twisting branch. "Is he alive?" "He knows how to live off the sea. I am sure he is alive." "You did not hurt him." He spreads his arms to her, showing his open hands and the open cut on his arm. "I did not hurt him." He drops his hands and looks to the rock beneath his feet. He shakes his head. "Come," he says suddenly. "I have something that you will like. Let us have peace." He turns the rabbit carcass away from the fire. "Come." He raises his eyes to her. "Let me show you." He holds out his hand. "Please." His eyes are full of these mountains. "Come." She does not take his hand, but she does follow him as he walks back up the track and then turns to the cliff, climbing up and over onto the slope of the mountain beyond. He turns once up there, dropping his hand down for her to take. "Let me show you." She puts her palm in his, and he raises her up to the slope. She follows him as he strides ahead among the low bush of the mountainside. Up here the world is a tumult of distance. At every angle is vista upon vista, distant peaks in blue and lighter blue and grey, fading to a horizon curving across the world. She feels exposed. There is nothing between here and the kingdom of the sun. A fresh wind is blowing. It ripples the tops of the low bushes and the dark hair of the man climbing the slope before her. She can see that this is his home. He lopes upwards as if there is no gradient and no force of gravity to unstick them from this place beneath the sky. "Come," he gestures, smiling. He kneels down, placing his hands among the bushes. "Come," he says again. She sinks down next to him, grateful to be nearer the rock. "Here I am alone," he tells her, his face split by a smile as fresh as the wind that plays about them. "Here I am free." He gestures around him to the peaks and the wide sky sinking to the blaze of sunset. He closes his eyes to them and the wind. "It is only us." He strokes a cluster of lightly pink and purple flowers that dance on their stalks. He allows them to brush his fingers, and then he invites her hand to touch them also. "Konkelboom," he tells her. She immerses her fingers in them, allowing them to dance against her skin, and then down past the soft of their blossoms to the woody stalks beneath. "As children we would eat these." Gently he digs at their base, taking hold of their stalks and pulling while he massages the soil away with the tips of his fingers and knuckles. "Look, dig gently around their stalks, and you will see. The fruit is hidden." Softly, the plant begins to crumble up and out of the soil, revealing a tuberous root system. Uncle Mike follows the revealed tuber with his fingers, working it carefully from the soil. Soon he has unearthed a string of tubers, each the size of the pad of his little finger. "Gently," he tells her. "There is more here than you could ever eat." He continues to dig and worry at the soil while he breathes the wind and looks out to the blazing sky. He plucks one of the little fruits from the roots he holds, and with his knife pares a strip of skin away. White flesh is revealed beneath, tinged with pink. He carves a slice of it and holds it out to her. "Taste." She does, accepting the sliver of clean fruit and placing it on her tongue. It is lightly bitter as the bite of the fresh wind and the sharpness of this elevated air, as bitter as a height attained that extends no further, and as sweet. The flavor washes her mouth. "I like it." He nods and grins, looking out onto the faraway world. "There," he says, pointing to the hazy west. "There is the Bai. Can you see it?" She looks out and finds the river of the trail that they followed as it twists through the long mountain, but she cannot see the little town. It is too far away. But it is there. He carves a sliver of the fruit for himself, a drop only on his large finger, but the pleasure of that childhood taste is full. He raises his hand, pointing out to the north. The last I saw the boy, he went there. She turns to the distant coast, nothing but a haze on the edge of the world. He knows the land out there. He has fished there many times. I would not worry. This world is large, but the heart does not forget its way home. She turns her eye to him as he looks out. He has taken on the character of the mountain. This endless vista and these infinite gradations of color are washed across his face. He is a part of this peak, as surely as the rocks themselves or the little bushes around them. It is dark when they make their way down the mountainside. About each of them is peace. He can hear nothing but the sound of her footfalls, and she sees nothing but his great silhouette against the rising stars. Let us do it now, he says when they have returned to their camp. He looks among his tools and takes up a tiny white-painted box. Will you help me? What will you do? Impregnate our clams, so that they are with pearl. He clicks his torch, the light spraying across the camp, revealing the rabbit still hung near the fire, his rolled sleeping mat, his jumbled tools in their piles. He strides toward the tank, and she follows. I have not done this myself before, but I have studied it. I believe I can do it. He spreads a section of tarp onto the bare rock and places his little toolbox on top of it. His torchlight pierces the clear water of the main tank, revealing the 12 clams in their rows. He plays his torch over them. With the sun gone, their shells are closed and the torchlight is a rude intrusion. Uncle Mike reaches his hand into the water, his arm bending by refraction as his fingers grasp the first clam. He lifts the animal from its place in the sand, streaming water. We must implant one of my beads. He shows her with his meaty finger, stroking at the lip of the animal's shell. I will use an implement to place it inside here. The clam will then cover the bead with its excretion, making our pearl. He kneels to place the clam on the top, and beside it he opens his toolbox. She looks down on his collection of tweezers and wedges. We will place one bead in each clam, and slowly, with each pearl, we will buy its freedom. She kneels and places her hand on the shell of the animal, a clear sign for him to pause. She lifts the animal and turns to the tank. 1 foot after the other, she climbs into it, lowering herself until she is sitting on the sand and her body is covered by the water. He follows her movements with his torch, emboldened when she does not disagree. He lights the clam in her hands, watching as she places it in her lap. She leans forward, allowing her head to sink below the water, and one by one she gathers the clams laid out ahead of her and places them all in a pile before her. He marvels as their shells begin to open and their feet emerge, tasting the water around her. Her head breaks the surface and she looks up to him. Come, is her unmistakable message. He must obey. He steps into the tank, his bulk taking up all available space, and as he lowers himself, the water rises over the lip and washes over the side. He is uncertain. She places her feet on his, her creatures clustered between his feet too. She leans her head back against the lip of the tank, the first clam still held in her lap, and closes her eyes. She begins to hum while she caresses the creature. He watches her in the last gloom of day, and then closes his eyes also. Now his mind is free to roam. He listens to her humming. Her feet begin to warm, imperceptibly but steadily. Her humming circles around him gently, like the tide rising and falling through the caves of the seaside. He feels the song is washing him, inside and out. His mind begins to wander. Moments arise out of the black, precise points in his own history. A boy and he at play in the mountains. Suddenly the boy is on the ground with blood on his lip and eyes full of pain. He regards this lost boy, and somehow the boy regards him in return. It was always so, he understands, looking at the boy. He would always return to this place. Something rises inside him, a pressure moving through his cells, a sucking. And just as it passes his lips, he feels a sharp bite on his finger. His eyes flip open and the sight is recorded in his memory. blood trailing from his hand while before him she suckles a clam to his finger. She looks up at him, those green eyes piercing his own, and he realizes that it is dark and the moon is not risen, that he cannot see her, and yet he does. Fear pulses through his body, a horror at the realization that she and her clams are eating him, and that he cannot move, and then his fear dissipates in the face of the drifting, in the womb of the lullaby. The world exhales. Once again he drifts in this warmth, observing memory, and memory observing him back. He sees a cow regarding him from the bush, her newborn calf at her side, and the sound of men approaching. He is deeply afraid, his breath whistling in his throat. They are nearly upon him. Again the world breathes, that pressure passes out of him, and something is birthed, gone from his body. This happens again and again. At times it is horror, sin rising, and at times it is bliss. At each passing and each bite of his hand and bleeding into the water, he feels himself dissolving into the beauty of her song. He lies still as she nips at him 10 times, and he bleeds, and humility soaks his soul. At the 11th reckoning he begins to sob. His little girl is in front of him. He sobs at his hardened heart as she falls into the water, away from him. But this time her face is not one of hate. She is smiling as she ducks under the waves. He mutters in that bath of bloodied water. Somewhere he is aware that the clams are injecting their seed into the water, and that from her flows a milky cloud that envelops all of them. Somewhere he is aware, also, that one clam has yet to feed. He lies back, exhausted, unwilling to continue. He feels her take his flesh into her mouth, and he feels the pull of the thorn in his own heart. But he cannot, he is spent. Once more, she whispers within the endless song. Give me your secrets. But he cannot. There is only so much he can part with. And so it circles back out into the ocean, certain to one day wash up again. He sees her smile, and instead she offers the clam her own finger. Thank you. Her feet are gone. He is helped from the tank. He knows and remembers simultaneously that he is in the lake and she is swirling around him, and that whether it is happening now or 1,000 years in the future or the past, it makes no difference. And then time also is gone. Sunrise. The leaves of the tree above become silhouette. He turns. Here is the grave still opened next to him. He rises on this beautiful morning and comes to his knees beside the hole. The little box is returned. Gently, he covers it once again. Thank you, he says to the silence of the clearing and the loose soil between his fingers. Thank you. An alien sound causes him to look up sharply. Uncle Mike turns to the mountain above. There is the sound again, a cry pitching over the cliffs. He knows its meaning. He begins to run. Quickly he passes from the trees and passes their campsite and the tank in which he cannot see over the lip, and continues to jog, taking the trail with gripping toes. Again, the cry up there, and now, with the sound he is expecting, the sharp whistle of a man. He lumbers up the trail, a bear flowing over the ground. He reaches the trailhead and continues, rounding the corner so that the entrance to his valley cannot be seen. And now he waits, the mountain silent and his breath whooshing through his lungs. The cry again, but no whistle. He squats down, waiting, listening to the footfalls of its approach. A mountain sheep steps into view, nuzzling the base of the boulder ahead for scattered vilsna, relishing the little berries. It has not seen him. He does not want to alarm it. A bleating mountain sheep will alarm its shepherd. Again the whistle, now from behind the boulder. Uncle Mike does not want to startle the shepherd either. In all his years he has never seen another soul at this lake, but now he realizes his assumption was rash. Why would a shepherd not bring his animals to water, especially in a world as uncertain as this? There is no time. He takes up a stone and hides it in his hand. In a flicker, the shepherd appears. He wears a blanket about his shoulders and a balaclava about his face, rolled up to the warm morning. He carries a staff and nonchalantly taps his animal on the flanks, happy to have found it. And then man and beast behold the giant. "Ha!" the shepherd exclaims, immediately raising his stick, and his sheep is gone, clattering onto a trail only it can see. "Good morning, brother," says Uncle Mike, testing a language of the mountain on this man. "Good morning, brother." "I am lost. I am traveling to Unkutweni, the village in these mountains. I come from the Bai. I am thirsty. The weather has been warm." The shepherd peers over the shoulder of the strange man before him. Uncle Mike cannot tell whether he knows of the lake or not. The shepherd squats down slowly, carefully, his stick at the ready before him. "I have come from the Bai. It is the place of the foreigners." "How long ago was this, good brother?" "1 week. I took beasts from the farmer Ulanov there, and have been driving them to Kweje." Abruptly the shepherd pauses, his eyes fixed behind Uncle Mike. He comes to his feet. Uncle Mike turns also. She rises before them, striding with grace across the curved rock. She has her eyes to the ground, and then to the humble shepherd. The man bows. She comes to sit beside Uncle Mike. "Brother, this is my companion. I am conducting her through these mountains. She knows the Bai also, and is aware of the foreigners there. Tell us, when last did you hear news from that place?" The shepherd looks everywhere but at the woman before him. He speaks shyly. "I have heard news not long ago. Many are aware of the foreigners, and many know that one of the people from this land has joined them." "Do you mean the men of the Fabrika, the owners of the fish houses?" "No, not them. It is a boy from that place. They say he is a fisherman among fishermen, that he can speak with the fish." She listens intently. "He has led them to a great catch. Even now 4 of the foreign ships are sailing back to their homeland, heavy with catch, while the 5th is returning to the Bai. It will feed the people. They will send the salted fish to the mines, and even to the city." "Who is this boy?" It is she who speaks, and even though she does not use words, the shepherd has heard her. He covers his head with his hands, speaking directly to the rock below him. "They do not know his face. He wears a mask and he talks to no one. But the people say he is a boy from the back of the Bai." "What are you doing in this part of the mountain? It is far from the trail." The shepherd lies down further, spreading himself on the rock at the sound of her voice in his mind. "There is good water here. I know a hidden lake." The shepherd knows men like the giant, violent men, and he has heard of spirits such as she. He is certain that they mean to eat. "I see that you carry your staff. It is for protection and for guiding your sheep?" "Yes. But there is another reason. Your leg is damaged." "Yes, I have damaged my leg falling in these mountains." "May I see to it?" She stands. The shepherd raises his eyes to her and the sun behind her. She kneels beside him and helps him sit, taking his injured leg in her hands. "There is indeed a lake of good water in these hills. There is a grave there, in the trees. Do you know it?" "Yes, I have seen the grave. It is a place of peace. I have camped there with my sheep." "This grave is sacred to me." Heat emanates from her hands. The pain that has been his companion for so long he has almost forgotten it begins to subside. His eyes widen in surprise, and then even more, for she has pierced his eyes with her own. Their green is too bright to behold. He would look away, but he cannot. "I hear your words. This is a sacred place." "You must avoid that place. I want no one to disturb it." She places her hand on his heart. "My companion and I will leave this place this day, and I want you to leave it also, and never return. It is my place. It must remain undisturbed. I will tell no one. That place will remain undisturbed. Thank you. I wish you a good journey. Thank you, great mother. Quickly the shepherd corrals his sheep, and nudging the animal before him, he rounds the boulder and is gone, returning to his flock. She turns to Uncle Mike. I am going back to find him. Your pearls are growing and will be everything you hope for. She leans forward and kisses his forehead, and just as the shepherd has become her servant, he knows he has also. He watches her take that same path around the boulder and disappear towards the trail. He sits, clothed in the silence of the mountain. He would stay at his valley and nurture his dream, but he knows that he cannot. He must follow her. It is fate. He takes a breath, releasing his life past, and then stands. He hurries back down the trail, back to the lake. The little valley is as he left it. He hurries down, going straight to the tank. He peers inside. It feels as if his heart has disappeared. The tank is empty. Where each clam lay is an imprint in the sandy bottom. He rushes to the second tank that is still half built. Nothing. He looks about wildly. The cliffs stare back at him, impassive, as do the trees. He looks to the trail on which he knows she is now walking. He shakes his head. He bangs his fist on the lip of the tank. And then it comes to him. He looks to the lake. He paces toward it, stepping up to the water's edge where he first laid her within it. He walks until the water covers his knees and then his thighs, and then he sees a clam at rest on the bottom, its greedy mouth open to the sun. He squats down into the water and reaches his hand out, stroking the lip of the creature. It does not close. He places his finger gently on the flesh of the mantle within, and still the mouth stays open. He looks beyond this clam and spies more. Here are the 12, all with their mouths open, all eating the sun. He is about to stand, drawing his hand back, when a further vision grabs him. Against the white of his hand something is seesawing, a multitude. Carefully he raises his hand to the surface, cupping his other hand next to it, bringing these seesawing creatures nearer his eye. He places his nose to the water, his eye near the veil, and spies them. They are the veliger, the young clams. Uncle Mike releases them. He dips his mouth into the water and immediately he tastes it. Salt. He looks to the cliffs and the trees and the cascading waterfall, and all return his gaze. Grow, he whispers to all the creatures in this valley, to all his new clams, and then he walks out of the water. With urgency, he takes all that he dragged over this mountain and sinks it into the lake. All of his implements and tanks and preparations are washed away. Finally, he stands with nothing but the clothes on his body, and then he turns from the lake and jogs up the trail. He does not go into the trees. He has already begged his leave. And besides, this place is his heart, and he takes it with him.